Why is a Cleveland Browns legend suddenly stepping in to defend Shedeur Sanders? Because when someone like Bernie Kosar speaks, it hits different. For months, the conversation around Shedeur has been loud: draft position, personality talk, combined decisions, endless debate. Some questioned whether he was truly the guy. Others claimed the hype outweighed the proof. But now, a former franchise quarterback just made something crystal clear. Kosar didn't hesitate. He said Shedeur impressed him: toughness, composure, leadership. He pointed out that quarterbacks are either victims or beneficiaries of what's around them, and last season the support wasn't exactly perfect. Struggling protection, limited separation from receivers, yet Shedeur still showed flashes. That endorsement matters. Because when a respected voice publicly backs you, it shifts the energy. It challenges the narrative. It forces critics to pause. And if Kosar is right, this season could look very different. When Bernie Kosar talks quarterback play in Cleveland, people pay attention. And when he was asked about Shedeur Sanders, he didn't dance around the question. He didn't hedge. He didn't give one of those safe, politically correct answers. He made it clear he liked what he saw. Kosar emphasized something most fans overlook: quarterbacks don't operate in isolation. They're either victims or beneficiaries of the system around them. Protection matters, receiver separation matters, coaching matters. And last season, Cleveland didn't exactly provide a perfect environment. The offensive line struggled at times. Receivers had difficulty creating consistent space. Drives stalled not just because of quarterback decisions, but because the structure wasn't always clean. Yet Shedeur still flashed poise. Kosar pointed out how impressive it was that Shedeur managed the chaos. He extended plays. He kept his composure. He showed the kind of confidence you can't teach. That stood out. And then he addressed the personality talk. There's been chatter about swagger, confidence, and whether Shedeur's demeanor rubs people the wrong way. Kosar dismissed that. He said what really matters is what the 52 other players in the locker room think. And according to him, teammates respect and respond to Shedeur. That's huge. Because being an NFL quarterback isn't about blending in. It's about commanding a room. It's about having the belief to walk into pressure situations and own them. Kosar even hinted that having stones, that inner edge, is part of the job description. But the most intriguing part, the coaching angle. Kosar speculated and made it clear it was speculation, that new head coach Todd Monken may have liked Shedeur dating back to previous draft conversations. If there's even a hint of truth to that, it changes the dynamic entirely. There's a difference between being tolerated and being wanted. If Monken truly believes in him, that alignment could unlock something different this season. When a quarterback knows his coach is invested, confidence multiplies. Kosar's message wasn't just praise. It was validation. Validation that Shedeur belongs. Validation that context matters. Validation that growth is possible if the right pieces fall into place. And coming from a Browns legend, that message carries weight. Now the question is whether Shedeur is good enough. It's whether Cleveland is ready to build around him. Here's the part most critics miss. When Bernie Kosar talked about Shedeur Sanders, he didn't focus on stats first. He didn't bring up draft position. He didn't even lean into the media narratives. He talked about the locker room. And that tells you everything. Kosar made it clear that being an NFL quarterback isn't about being normal. It's not about being quiet or universally liked on social media. It's about commanding respect inside that building. It's about whether the 52 other guys believe in you when the pocket collapses and the game is on the line. According to Kosar, they do. That matters more than any headline. There's been a steady stream of commentary questioning Shedeur's confidence. Some call it bravado, some label it arrogance. But there's a fine line between ego and leadership, And in professional football, that line often separates backups from franchise quarterbacks. You don't lead grown men in an NFL locker room by being timid. You lead by conviction. Kosar even hinted that you need a certain edge, that inner steel, to survive at that level. And from his perspective, Shedeur has it. Not manufactured confidence, not loud for no reason energy, real belief in himself. That's contagious. And when teammates respond to it, it creates something powerful. Momentum inside a locker room is invisible from the outside. Fans see box scores, analysts see tape, but players feel presence. If receivers trust you to put the ball where it needs to be, they run routes harder. If linemen believe in you, they fight through pain longer. If the defense believes you can put up points, they play freer. Leadership multiplies effort. That's why Kosar's endorsement hits different. He's been in that exact seat. He knows what it feels like to carry Cleveland's expectations. He understands the pressure, the noise, the weight of being the face of the franchise. And he sees something in Shedeur that reminds him of what it takes. Now pair that with the coaching change. If Todd Monken truly aligns with Shedeur, and Kosar suggested there may be prior interest, that creates a foundation. When your head coach believes in your leadership, it stabilizes everything. Confidence plus coaching equals opportunity. And opportunity is all a quarterback really needs. The narrative outside the building may still be loud. Draft slide, combine debates, personality critiques. But inside that room, if the respect is real, that's the only foundation that matters. Because in the NFL, locker rooms don't lie. Now this is where things get really interesting. Because it's one thing for a former quarterback like Bernie Kosar to publicly back Shedeur Sanders. That boosts confidence. That shifts the narrative. But when the conversation turns to Todd Monken, the stakes get higher. Kosar hinted at something speculative, and he made it clear it was speculation. That Monken may have had interest in Shedeur dating back to earlier draft discussions. There have been whispers that when Monken was previously in Baltimore, he liked Shedeur's skill set. Now, to be clear, those are rumors, nothing officially confirmed, but even the suggestion matters. Why? Because there's a massive difference between playing for a coach who inherited you and playing for a coach who wanted you. When a coach chooses you, it changes everything. The playbook bends toward your strengths. The patience level increases. Mistakes become teaching moments instead of evidence. Development becomes intentional. And Monken isn't known for being passive. He's aggressive, creative, quarterback-friendly. He's built offenses around timing, vertical pressure, and rhythm, all areas where Shedeur has shown flashes of comfort. If that alignment is real, even partially, the synergy could be powerful. Think about it from a confidence standpoint. If Shedeur walks into meetings knowing the head coach believes in his ceiling, that shifts how he plays. Quarterbacks are rhythm players. They thrive when they feel trust from the top. Now imagine pairing that trust with a front office that appears aligned. The previous regime questions, gone. The hesitations, reset. This becomes a clean slate. And that's what makes this moment critical, because talent alone isn't enough in the NFL. Context matters, fit matters, scheme matters, timing matters. Monken's presence signals something. It signals evolution. It signals that Cleveland may finally be building intentionally around the quarterback position, instead of constantly rotating through it. And if Monken truly sees Shedeur as someone he can develop and elevate, this won't just be about proving doubters wrong. It'll be about unlocking something bigger. But here's the part that adds pressure. When a coach believes in you, expectations rise. If Monken tailors the offense, if the front office adds protection and weapons, the excuses disappear. The spotlight intensifies. And that's when we find out if belief turns into production. Because alignment creates opportunity, and opportunity reveals truth. Let's talk about the moment that changed the tone of everything. When Shedeur Sanders slid in the draft, the narrative shifted instantly. Before that night, many projected him higher. Some believed he'd hear his name called much earlier, but as pick after pick rolled in, questions started forming. Why is he still on the board? Was it performance, personality, interviews, combined decisions? No one gave a single clear answer, and that ambiguity created space for speculation. Draft slides are tricky. Sometimes it's scheme fit, sometimes it's roster construction. Sometimes teams simply fall in love with another prospect, but when a high-profile quarterback drops, it rarely stays quiet. The conversation becomes louder than the tape. Then came minicamp and early reports. Some fans believe Shedeur didn't get equal opportunity right away. Fewer reps, different rotations, limited chances to showcase. To be fair, rookie quarterbacks often earn their snaps gradually. That's standard across the league. But when a player enters with hype and scrutiny, every decision feels amplified. And that's what happened here. Every rep was dissected, every quote analyzed, every expression interpreted. Add in the combine decision, choosing not to throw, and the criticism intensified. For some analysts, that became a red flag. For supporters, it was strategic. But here's the thing about perception. Once a storyline forms, it sticks. Shedeur's slide became proof for critics that something was wrong. His confidence became arrogance in certain circles. His media presence became overexposure. And suddenly, football conversations weren't just about football. Yet when he stepped on the field, flashes were there. Composure under pressure, timing throws, toughness behind shaky protection. He didn't look overwhelmed. He didn't look lost. He looked like a rookie learning at NFL speed, which is exactly what he was. The difference is, not every rookie carries that level of spotlight. Some quarterbacks develop quietly. They make mistakes off camera. They grow without constant debate. Shedeur hasn't had that luxury. Every step has felt like a referendum. But here's the reality. Draft position doesn't determine career trajectory. History proves that. Plenty of quarterbacks drafted early struggle. Plenty drafted later thrive. The league humbles predictions quickly. What matters now isn't where he was selected. It's what happens next. If Cleveland builds properly around him, protection, separation, scheme clarity, the draft slide becomes a footnote. If not, critics will use it as confirmation bias. That's the crossroads. Because narratives are powerful, but performance is louder. Now here, where the temperature really rises. When Shedeur Sanders chose not to throw at the NFL Combine, the reaction was immediate. Analysts questioned his decision. Commentators debated his confidence. Some framed it as arrogance. Others called it risky. The phrase, "what is he hiding?" started floating around. It wasn't subtle. For weeks, that decision was attached to his draft narrative. It became part of the explanation for why he slid. Fair or not, it stuck. Fast forward. Another quarterback reportedly makes a similar decision, choosing not to throw at the combine, preferring to throw at his pro day with his own receivers. And the response? Noticeably calmer. Less outrage, fewer headlines, more understanding. That's where fans started asking questions. Is it about the decision itself? Or is it about who's making it? To be fair, quarterbacks skip combine throwing every year. It's not new. Some want timing with their college receivers. Some feel their tape already speaks for itself. Some are managing minor injuries. There are plenty of legitimate reasons. But perception isn't always about logic. It's about tone. When Shedeur made that call, the tone felt punitive. It was framed as defiance, as entitlement, as evidence of something deeper. And once that framing took hold, it fueled a larger narrative about his personality. Now when similar choices happen, the framing feels different, more strategic, more measured, more acceptable. That's why the phrase, "keep that same energy," started circulating. Because fans don't just evaluate decisions, they evaluate consistency. If skipping the combine is a red flag for one quarterback, it should be a red flag for all. If it's a strategic move for one, it should be strategic for everyone. Otherwise, it feels selective. Now, it's important to stay balanced here. Media reactions vary by outlet. Not every analyst treated Shedeur harshly, and not every new quarterback is being given a free pass. Context matters: draft projections, team needs, personality fit, and even timing in the news cycle. But perception shapes narratives. And once the narrative becomes double standard, it strengthens support among fans who already believe Shedeur was judged differently. Here's the bigger issue. Combined decisions don't define NFL careers. Throwing in shorts against air isn't the same as reading a disguised coverage with pressure in your face. Scouts value the workout, but tape still matters most. The irony: if Shedeur thrives this season, the combine debate will look irrelevant. If he struggles, critics will revisit it as confirmation. That's how narratives work. But right now, the debate isn't just about a workout. It's about consistency. And consistency is what fans are demanding. Now let's talk about the argument that keeps resurfacing: the resume. Because when debates heat up around Shedeur Sanders, someone always brings it back to college production, awards, and draft position. And lately, comparisons have been flying, especially with quarterbacks who racked up trophies. Here's the core of the debate. Some critics argue that if another quarterback won a national championship or a Heisman, that resume automatically outweighs Shedeur. On paper, that sounds simple. Awards equal greatness. Team success equals superior prospect. But football has never been that clean. Individual production and team achievement are not always the same thing. Quarterbacks benefit from or suffer because of what's around them. Elite offensive lines, generational defenses, stacked receiver rooms, coaching continuity, all of that shapes outcomes. Supporters of Shedeur point to raw numbers. They argue his final season at Colorado showcased high-level accuracy, toughness under pressure, and the ability to produce even behind inconsistent protection. They emphasize volume stats, efficiency, and the fact that he carried a heavy offensive load. Critics counter with team record and accolades. They'll say winning matters, hardware matters, draft boards matter. But here, where it gets complicated. Awards are influenced by narrative. Heisman campaigns are driven by media momentum, team record, and national spotlight. National titles are team achievements, not individual stat lines. That doesn't discredit them, it just contextualizes them. If you isolate quarterback traits, pocket awareness, arm talent, processing speed, composure, the conversation becomes less about trophies and more about translatable skills. And that's what NFL evaluators actually care about. Resume debates often turn emotional because fans anchor themselves to symbols, rings, trophies, headlines. But the league evaluates projection. Who can operate in a pro system? Who can handle disguised coverages? Who can make anticipatory throws into tight windows? That's why draft boards don't always mirror award ceremonies. Now layer this into the narrative. When Shedeur's production is compared to others, supporters argue the body of work stands strong statistically. They'll say, pull the numbers. They'll argue the efficiency and yardage were elite given the context. Critics respond, then why did he slide? And that's where everything circles back to perception again. Resume debates don't end in college. They restart in the NFL. Because once the season begins, none of the trophies matter. Not the Heisman, not the national championship, not draft position. Only performance. And that's why this debate feels unfinished. Because the real resume starts now. This might be the most important shift of all. Because everything we've talked about, the draft slide, the combine debate, the resume arguments, all of that lives in the past. What matters now is who's steering the ship. And Cleveland feels different. With Andrew Berry still shaping the roster and Todd Monken stepping into the head coaching role, this isn't the same environment Shedeur walked into as a rookie. It's a reset. That word matters. When a new coaching staff arrives, depth charts get reevaluated, old opinions fade, new systems are installed. Quarterbacks aren't judged solely on past narratives, they're judged on fit. And fit can change everything. If Monken truly believes in Shedeur Sanders, and there's been speculation that he liked him dating back to previous draft discussions, then this becomes more than just a second season. It becomes alignment. Alignment between front office, coaching staff, and quarterback is rare in the NFL. When it exists, development accelerates. When it doesn't, careers stall. Think about it. How many young quarterbacks fail not because of talent, but because of instability? New coordinators every year, different systems, constant pressure to prove themselves in chaos. Cleveland now has a chance to break that cycle. Monken's offensive philosophy leans aggressive. He's not afraid to push vertically. He values rhythm and timing. If the Browns invest in improving the offensive line and adding legitimate separation threats at receiver, the structure around Shedeur changes immediately. And structure breeds confidence. But this isn't just about scheme. It's about belief. When a head coach publicly or privately backs his quarterback, the locker room feels it. Teammates respond differently. Preparation sharpens. The energy shifts. That's why this offseason is critical. Free agency moves, draft picks, offensive line upgrades, receiver additions. Every decision will signal whether Cleveland is truly building around Shedeur or simply evaluating him. Because there's a difference. Building around someone says, "You're our guy." Evaluating someone says, "Convince us." Right now, it feels like Cleveland is leaning toward the first option. And if that's true, this isn't just another season. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where context finally matches potential. Now the pressure shifts. Because when the organization aligns behind you, excuses disappear. And opportunity becomes real. So here we are. After the draft slide, after the combine debates, after the personality critiques, after the resume arguments, after the whispers and the speculation. The question now is simple. Is this a redemption season for Shedeur Sanders? Because make no mistake, this year feels different. He's no longer the mystery prospect. He's no longer just the headline attached to his father's name. He's no longer the rookie adjusting to NFL speed. Now he's the quarterback in a system that may finally align with him. With Todd Monken stepping in and a front office led by Andrew Berry continuing to reshape the roster, this season becomes a proving ground. Not just for him, for the narrative. Because narratives are loud in the offseason. They live on social media. They dominate talk shows. They thrive on speculation. But once the season starts, they shrink to one thing: production. If Shedeur thrives with improved protection and better weapons, the draft slide becomes a storyline about teams that missed. The combine controversy becomes irrelevant. The personality debate fades into background noise. But if he struggles, the critics will say they saw it coming. That's the weight of being a high-profile quarterback. There's rarely middle ground. You're either validated or questioned. And that's what makes this compelling. He's stepping into a moment where context finally matches opportunity. If Monken tailors the offense, If the locker room continues to respond, if the organization truly builds around him instead of evaluating him from a distance, this could be the turning point. But redemption isn't handed out. It's earned. Every third down throw, every late game drive, every mistake and how he responds to it, that's where the real story will unfold. Because this isn't just about silencing critics. It's about defining identity. Is he the quarterback who overcame early doubt and rewrote the narrative? Or the prospect who couldn't fully escape it? That answer won't come from podcasts. It won't come from draft grades. It won't come from tweets. It'll come from Sundays. And if he delivers, the conversation won't be about whether he belongs anymore. It'll be about how far he can take Cleveland.